Could blood be set for a return to WWE television? Well, the CEO of World Wrestling Entertainment, Nick Khan, has commented on the matter. Speaking of WWE, Drew McIntyre has been absent from WWE television for the last few weeks. We've got an update on when the former WWE champion could be set to return to WWE TV. Speaking of Nick Khan as well, he's addressed that some WWE superstars would like to be paid more. What does Nick Khan think about the current pay scale in WWE? An interesting segment and angle is planned for the Bloodline tonight on Monday Night Raw. We got details on that. Plus, Corey Graves has some very interesting comments about the women's tag team division in WWE. An update on former WWE superstar Sasha Banks, now known as Mercedes Moné, and her contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling / Stardom. Some interesting names are set to return tonight on Monday Night Raw after the travel chaos last week. Grayson Waller Effect is going to be taking place this coming Tuesday on NXT with the NXT champion Carmelo Hayes a special guest. Noam Dar is set to make his in-ring debut on NXT this week, and Cody Rhodes wrestles his 1,500th WWE match. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of World Wrestling Entertainment. Let's start off talking about Nick Khan commenting if blood could return to WWE TV. Now, blood on TV is something that happens quite a lot on AEW television. Some think too much, but some people would like to see it return to WWE TV. We did see blood at WrestleMania, but obviously that caused the Hell in a Cell match to stop between Edge and Finn Balor after Balor got his head split open after Edge threw a ladder at him. But steering back to Nick Khan, WWE CEO Nick Khan has commented on the possibility of blood returning to WWE TV following the company's sale to Endeavor. With Raw and SmackDown currently running with TV PG ratings, most occasions in which you'll see blood on WWE TV won't have been deliberate. Obviously, the act of deliberately cutting oneself or blading oneself hasn't happened in WWE, I think, since 2008. In fact, the last time it probably happened was Batista and Chris Jericho inside a cage match during a Monday Night Raw episode, and actually Batista and Chris Jericho and the referee were fined in that instance. The last time it was actually approved, I believe, was Shawn Michaels versus Chris Jericho at the Great American Bash in 2008. Let me know if I'm wrong in that in the comment section below. But speaking to Lightshed Partners, Nick Khan indicated that NBC Universal may be supportive about an edgier final hour of Monday Night Raw. When asked about blood potentially returning in this hour time slot, Khan said, quote, "Look, when we're specifically talking about the 10 to 11 hour on Raw, we're specifically talking to NBCU and ourselves about what we do with that moving forward. We ask, what do we do if we tweak this, that 10 to 11 hour? It's basic cable, it's not broadcast, as you know. We think that NBCU would be supportive, but we're not on a final conclusion on that." So essentially, look, Nick Khan isn't ruling out that final hour of Monday Night Raw becoming a bit edgier. As he mentions, it's cable, it's not network television like Fox and SmackDown. So anything's certainly possible. Now, NBCU obviously owns USA Network, the current home of Monday Night Raw, whereas SmackDown notably airs weekly on Fox. Ahead of the upcoming television deals expiring, it was announced that Endeavor has acquired a majority stake in WWE and will merge the company with UFC to form one sports entertainment company. The media rights negotiations are still set to take place this year, so it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Endeavor, with WWE, with Nick Khan, with Vince McMahon, to see how these television contracts come together. I think it's going to be a really big story moving forward this year. But let me know your thoughts. Would you like to see blood return to WWE television, even if it was in the final hour of Monday Night Raw from 10 to 11, and I guess maybe on premium live events as well? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Now, Drew McIntyre, his absence has been heavily discussed and debated over the last few weeks with reports about his contract, frustration, injuries, money, etc. Now, a new report has provided an update on when Drew McIntyre will return to action, with reports that McIntyre's contract is up this year and that McIntyre is unhappy with his position in the company. Some fans have predicted that the former WWE champion won't be with the company this time next year. Those rumors were fueled when McIntyre blacked out his Twitter profile and removed WWE references from his bio. The former WWE champion has reportedly been out of action due to health issues following WrestleMania 39. Per Dave Meltzer in Wrestling Observer's Daily Update, McIntyre won't be returning to action for, quote, at least a few more weeks based on the word we've heard over the weekend. The Scottish Warrior has missed the past 2 weeks of SmackDown after suffering a loss to Gunther in a triple threat match, also including Sheamus at WrestleMania 39 on April 2nd. Following rumors started by fans that Drew McIntyre is preparing to leave leave WWE in time for an appearance at AEW All In London this August. Reports have revealed that McIntyre's contract runs well past that date. It had been rumored and reported that McIntyre has about 9 months left on his WWE contract. So unless something drastic happens, i.e. he gets released, and even then the clock would be on when it comes to a 90-day non-compete, it's very, very, very unlikely that Drew Galloway would be appearing at All In at Wembley Stadium. So if you're hoping or buying a ticket expecting to see Drew there, don't do it for that reason, because he's not going to be there. Going back to Nick Khan, he's opened up on the pay scale in WWE while the dust is still settling on the announcement of Endeavor's purchase of the company. There have naturally been a lot of questions regarding perhaps the most eye-catching aspect of the deal, that being the planned merger between WWE and UFC. UFC President Dana White has both hailed the merger while also distancing the company's product from WWE by stating there will be no crossover between the two. However, while the on-screen products may not be intertwining, will the merger perhaps also influence both companies adopting a similar approach to talent contracts and pay? UFC's issue with fighter pay has been addressed recently by YouTuber and pro boxer Jake Paul, who responded to the news of WWE and UFC's upcoming merger with a tweet saying, quote, UFC and WWE makes too much sense, great path into increasing fighter pay. Of course, it's been a heavily debated subject in the world of UFC and MMA that UFC doesn't pay its fighters very well at all, especially considering what they used to be paid back in the day versus what they're paid now. However, while the two companies will soon be under the same umbrella, according to WWE CEO Nick Khan, the UFC's payment practices will remain separate of that to WWE despite the merger, with Khan noting that it was not any of their business what Dana White does in that respect. Speaking in that same interview with Light Shed Live, Khan would then address the pay of WWE's contracted talent. Quote, in terms of our performers, we think a lot of them are well compensated. Of course they would. Certainly, all talent wants to be paid more. Management wants to try and manage those costs. Each individual deal is unique in and of itself. We're confident with our position in the marketplace in terms of our WWE superstars. Depending on what rights fees increases on the media rights, we expect a lot of that to drop to the bottom line. Thankfully, as of yet, there have not been any talent cuts. However, WWE does seem to be in the middle of an unofficial hiring freeze, although Dave Meltzer said that wasn't the case, but there haven't been any main roster signings since the beginning of the year when Vince McMahon returned. So that's very interesting. But kind of what Nick Khan is hinting at there is that the next media rights negotiations, they could get a lot more money for them, and the expectation is that they will, and that may increase pay for the talent as well. So keep an eye on that. Again, the whole media rights negotiations is going to affect a lot of things this year. It's going to be fascinating to see where Raw and SmackDown end up, particularly SmackDown. I think the expectation would be that Raw remains on USA, but SmackDown on Fox, that's going to be a really, really interesting one. Speaking of Raw, of course, we've got another episode of Monday Night Raw tonight on USA Network. Despite the Bloodline saga undeniably being one of the greatest WWE storylines in recent memory, the consensus among fans is that ever since WrestleMania, things have gotten maybe a little bit repetitive. Not only are we seeing matches rehashed, such as Solo Sikoa versus Kevin Owens on last Monday's Raw, but there has been a little of the same must-see segments that the Bloodline saga was known for. While the lack of Roman Reigns, of course, doesn't help matters, a shot in the arm is most definitely needed for the Usos and Solo, as well as their antagonists Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and Matt Riddle. And thankfully, we may be set to get our wish on tonight's episode of Raw, as some surprising plans for the show have been leaked. Of course, spoilers ahead here, so if you want to possibly skip ahead, you can. I'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As reported by WRKD Wrestling via Twitter, Raw will see some rare intertwining of the Bloodline and WWE's second biggest heel faction, the Judgment Day. WRKD tweeted, quote, while things can still change, initial plans for tomorrow's Raw include an angle that sees the Bloodline and Judgment Day decide to go after each other's enemies. We'll see Solo face off against Rey Mysterio, while Owens, Zayn, and Riddle will fight the Judgment Day in the main event. This is an interesting change of pace for both the Bloodline and the Judgment Day. However, if true, it's hard to argue that it's not a wise move on Triple H's part in order to keep both stories from feeling stale. Certainly, fresh matches there, and certainly an interesting angle for this week's Raw. Now, Corey Graves has said some interesting comments when it comes to the women's tag team division that have divided people on social media. So I want to get get your guys' thoughts on this. The WWE Women's Tag Team Championships have existed for just over about 4 years, and in that time they've been held by 16 different tag teams. While some title holders were established teams within the women's division, most have been hastily assembled teams. Recently, on the After the Bell podcast, Corey Graves criticized the women's tag team division's weakness in terms of established tag teams. Hat tip to Fightful for this transcription. Quote, "As far as women's tag team championships go, I'm probably going to catch hell for this. It's never been a strong division," Graves said. It's sort of been a situation of throwing together teams, and I'm going to team with this person tonight. We have a tag title match. We didn't win. Okay, time to get a new partner. It's always been very transient and constantly in flux. I'm talking the entire existence of the title since the very beginning. Graves went on to praise women's tag team champions Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan and say that they have what it takes to solidify the division. He also said that the closest to a serious tag team to hold the titles had been the Iconics back in 2019. Jessie McKay and Cassie Lee, then known in WWE as Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, are the only full-time pair to have ever held the titles. The commentary on the women's tag team division from Graves comes nearly 1 year after former champions Trinity Fatu and Mercedes Moné walked out of WWE before an episode of Monday Night Raw. The pair walked out due to frustrations with booking regarding their status as tag team champions following the subsequent vacation of their titles. The women's tag team titles remained off of WWE television for 3 months before Triple H brought them back. So do you agree with what Corey Graves is saying there? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, because a lot of people have had their opinion on his comments. Speaking of Mercedes Moné, a bit of a detour from WWE news, but we'll get back shortly. Mercedes Moné is set to make her final appearance under her current deal at All-Star Grand Queendom on April 23rd. As previously reported, Moné will face Mayu Iwatani at All-Star Grand Queendom with the IWGP Women's Championship on the line. With no further appearances after April 23 on the cards, Dave Meltzer has provided an update on her contract. Speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Meltzer stated, quote, "They are in negotiations for one more match. Her final match of her current contract is the match this coming Sunday at the Yokohama Arena against Mayu for the IWGP Women's title, but I do not know if the deal is done. It was not done the last I was told, but she is in talks for one more date. I don't know what that date would be. I don't know if it would be Dominion or what exactly, so that's where her situation is right now." Moné recently made her first in-ring appearance for Stardom, attacking Iwatani after her 6-woman tag team match on April 15, with details of what went happened being found on previous videos. Moné won the IWGP Women's Championship from Kairi, formerly known as Kairi Sane, at Battle in the Valley in February after debuting at Wrestle Kingdom in January. She has since retained it against AZM and Hazuki in a 3-way match at Sakura Genesis. So perhaps one more match for Mercedes Moné under the Bushi Road umbrella. Going back to Raw this week, 2 WWE stars have been announced for a match on tonight's episode of Monday Night Raw. Neither of them were on the show last week. Of course, last week's show was hit by some big travel issues with numerous talents who were on a delayed flight from Orlando to Seattle having been pulled from the show. So it's likely we'll see a bunch of those names back tonight, but there are a couple of others too. Reports indicated last week that the Miz's match with Matt Riddle was pulled from Raw before the travel problems even arose, and Miz was absent from the show for a completely different reason. Miz is set to be back tonight though, but he won't be facing Riddle in the match that was supposed to be taking place last week. Instead, Miz will be facing Seth freaking Rollins tonight, who also wasn't on the show last week. The reason Rollins wasn't on the show last week is unclear, as he wasn't listed in any reports as one of the names who had travel issues. He actually took to Twitter after the announcement of tonight's match against The Miz to celebrate the fact he's been booked. Rollins' wife Becky Lynch was of course on Raw last week and kicked off the angle with Trish Stratus that will reportedly lead to a match between them at SummerSlam this summer. According to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, the names affected by the delayed flight last week were Sami Zayn, Matt Riddle, Damian Priest, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Legado del Fantasma, and the Street Profits. They reportedly arrived during the 3rd hour of the show, so Zayn and Riddle did actually manage to get on the show with a run-in at the end to save Kevin Owens from the Usos and Solo Sikoa. So currently set for tonight's Raw is The Miz versus Seth Rollins. Brock Lesnar, of course, is going to be on Raw tonight to address the challenge from Cody Rhodes for a match against Brock Lesnar at Backlash. Trish Stratus will will explain why she turned on Becky Lynch. And we've also got US champion Austin Theory versus Bobby Lashley, but that's in a non-title match. Of course, those plans could change, either due to issues like last week or at the whims of Vince McMahon, who has reportedly been in pre-show meetings remotely and has made some minor changes to the show, although reportedly nothing major since the Raw after WrestleMania 39, where he basically took over the entire show as he happened to be there in person. So, of course, we'll let you know if there's any Vince McMahon-isms taking place prior to Raw tonight. NXT this week, of course, we now know who Carmelo Hayes' first challenger for the NXT Championship is going to be. It's going to be Grayson Waller. At NXT Stand and Deliver, Carmelo Hayes defeated Bron Breakker to win the NXT Championship. On the following week's NXT, Breakker turned heel by attacking Hayes and his associate Trick Williams. On the April 11 edition of NXT, Grayson Waller defeated Duke Hudson, Dragon Lee, and JD McDonough to earn a shot at Carmelo's title. On Sunday afternoon, WWE announced that Grayson Waller will host another edition of the Grayson Waller Effect with his special guest Carmelo Hayes. The company wrote, quote, "Breaking ahead of their championship match at NXT Spring Breaking, NXT champion Carmelo Hayes will join Grayson Waller as a special guest on the Grayson Waller Effect this Tuesday. Hayes and Waller will face each other for the NXT Championship on the April 25 Spring Breaking special of NXT." So obviously tonight, or Tuesday rather, is going to build to that match. Also announced for Tuesday, Noam Dar is going to be in action. On April 4, the latest name to join the NXT roster after coming across from the now defunct NXT UK brand was Heritage Cup champion Noam Dar. Dar sat ringside with the Heritage Cup trophy for a match between Nathan Fraser and Dragon Lee, which Dragon Lee won. Then last week there was a video package with Dar explaining the rules of the Heritage Cup matches and announcing that the concept would be making its way to NXT. WWE has announced that tomorrow night Dar will be in action against an opponent yet to be revealed. In a stat that's almost incredible to think about, it will be his first ever match actually on NXT television. Dar has been back, or has been with WWE since way back in 2016 when he was part of the Cruiserweight Classic and then was signed as a member of the 205 Live roster. During his time in 2016 and 2017, Dar was often featured on Monday Night Raw, memorable for his on-screen relationship with Alicia Fox. Dar unfortunately ended up suffering a number of injuries that kept him out for months and months. He was moved to the NXT UK brand, where he stayed from 2019 until its closure last year. So indeed, we're going to see Noam Dar make his NXT in-ring debut, can you believe it, this coming Tuesday. Finally, Cody Rhodes hits a big milestone in his WWE career following, obviously, his WrestleMania 39 main event. Rhodes' most recent televised match saw him unsuccessfully challenge for Roman Reigns' undisputed Universal Championship in the final match of WrestleMania 39 Sunday. The bout was Rhodes' 1,499th match ever in WWE. The American Nightmare has now wrestled his 1,500th bout inside of a WWE ring, with the contest taking place at Saturday's April 15 WWE live event in New Mexico. After initially stating that he wasn't cleared to wrestle at the event, Rhodes decided to step in the ring after an attack from Imperium. In the main event of the show, Rhodes teamed with Matt Riddle and Kevin Owens to defeat Gunther, Ludwig Kaiser, and Giovanni Vinci. So Cody Rhodes, 1,500 matches inside of a WWE ring. But there you go, guys. This latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember, you can join the WN365 roster by clicking that join button, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.